The stage lights burned bright across the Jimmy Kimmel Live set, the crowd clapping on cue as the band rapped its intro. Jimmy turned toward the curtain with his trademark grin, holding a cue card in one hand and a mug in the other. "All right, everybody," he said, voice smooth and upbeat. "Our next guest is never short of opinions, and most of them get him in trouble. Give it up for Bill Maher." The audience cheered, a mixture of excitement and curiosity. Bill strode out wearing a dark suit and his familiar half-smile, confident, detached, already reading the room. He shook Jimmy's hand, sat down, and crossed one leg over the other. Jimmy leaned forward. "Bill, always good to see you. You've been busy. New season, new tour, and 1,000 people mad at you online. Business as usual?" Bill chuckled. "It's not business as usual, Jimmy. It's honesty as usual. That's the thing people confuse." The audience laughed, the warm kind of laugh that comes when everyone still believes this is friendly banter. Jimmy nodded, grinning. "Well, we love honesty here. Unless it gets us canceled, of course." Bill tilted his head. "Then you don't love honesty. You just rent it by the minute." The crowd reacted with a mix of laughter and surprised gasps. Jimmy's smile froze for a beat. He laughed it off, tapping his cue card on the desk. "You've been here 30 seconds and you've already roasted me. I see how tonight's gonna go." The tension was subtle, but it was there, like static electricity building. Jimmy tried to keep the tone light. "You know, Bill, you've been on every talk show for decades. You are talk shows, basically. But I've got to ask, do you ever get tired of arguing with everyone?" Bill leaned back, fingers steepled. "No, I get tired of everyone pretending they agree with everyone. That's what's ruining conversation. Too much smiling, not enough thinking." The audience chuckled, uncertain whether to clap or stay quiet. Jimmy forced a laugh. "So you're saying I smile too much?" Bill shrugged. "I'm saying you smile when you don't mean it. You all do. That's television." The crowd laughed louder this time, half amusement, half disbelief. Jimmy blinked, still smiling but with a flicker of discomfort. "Well, I am in the entertainment business, Bill. It's my job to make people feel good." Bill nodded slowly. "Right, you entertain them. I try to wake them up. Two very different careers." The line hit hard. The laughter stopped. Someone in the audience whistled softly. Jimmy's grin faltered again before he picked it back up. "Okay, but you're not exactly a monk, Bill. You are on TV. You like the spotlight." Bill leaned forward slightly. Tone, even, but cutting. "I like the spotlight when it's showing something real. You like it when it's flattering." The audience reacted again. Louder laughter mixed with scattered applause. Jimmy tried to wave it off, but his voice tightened. "So now I'm fake and vain?" Bill smiled. "I didn't say that. You did." The eruption of laughter filled the studio. Jimmy leaned back, pretending to laugh along, but his knuckles whitened around the cue card. He gestured toward the band, trying to pivot. "So, about your new tour?" Bill cut in, still smiling. "See, there it is. Deflect, joke, move on. That's why people trust comedians more than talk show hosts now." The room buzzed with noise. Cheers, laughter, scattered claps. Graham from the band struck a cymbal nervously to fill the dead air. Jimmy exhaled through a forced grin. "Wow," he said. "Remind me not to invite you on my birthday." Bill smirked. "You wouldn't have to. You'd talk enough for both of us." The audience howled, some half covering their faces, sensing that what had started as a reunion was turning into a duel. Jimmy lifted his mug and took a long sip to cover the silence. The laughter that had filled the room a moment earlier died down to a nervous hum. Jimmy's trademark grin stayed frozen in place, but the easy rhythm of the interview was gone. The cards in his hand fluttered as he searched for his next line. "So, Bill," he said, voice lighter than before, "you've spent your whole career telling people how the world should be. Don't you ever get tired of hearing yourself talk?" It was supposed to land as a joke, but the air didn't move. A few scattered laughs popped in the back rows, then silence. Bill leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes steady. "That's funny. I could ask you the same thing. You talk every night and somehow manage to say nothing." The audience reacted. Half-shocked laughter, half cheers. Jimmy raised his mug, taking a sip to buy a second, then pointed toward Bill. "Careful, you're on my turf." Bill smiled. "Exactly. And that's why it's so quiet all of a sudden." The crowd burst out again, a roar of laughter echoing through the studio. Jimmy forced a laugh, the kind that comes a half-second too late. Okay, you're sharp tonight." Bill shrugged. "Always. I'm not here to play the Hollywood nice game, Jimmy. I'm too old for that." Jimmy straightened his posture. What does that mean, the Hollywood nice game? It means, Bill said, that everyone here smiles for the camera, tells jokes that don't offend anyone, and then leaves pretending they've changed the world. You know the routine. A ripple of laughter moved through the crowd. They could feel where this was headed. Jimmy tapped his pen on the desk, grin thinner now. So now you're insulting the entire late-night family? I'm describing it, Bill replied. If it sounds like an insult, maybe that says something. Gasps, applause, a low whistle from the back row. Jimmy leaned in, voice firmer. I think you underestimate how hard this job is. You try filling an hour every night. Bill didn't blink. I fill an hour every week with ideas. You fill it with celebrity confessions. The line hit hard. The crowd broke into chaotic laughter, some clapping, others groaning at the audacity. Jimmy's smile vanished completely for the first time. He lowered his mug, eyes narrowing. You came here to start a fight? No, Bill said quietly. I came here because you invited me. But apparently honesty counts as fighting now. The applause was instant, almost defiant. The band started to play a faint sting, unsure whether to lighten the mood or brace for impact. Jimmy waved them off. All right, calm down everybody. He looked back at Bill. You make it sound like everyone's afraid to talk, but you... Bill's reply came crisp. I'm not afraid to lose a few likes. That's the difference, the audience shouted in response, laughter mixing with a few scattered boos. The show was slipping out of Jimmy's hands. The tension climbed minute by minute. The laughter was now nervous. Each joke landed like a test. Jimmy took a breath, setting his notes aside. Let's get serious for a second, he said, tone steady but tight. You say you're honest, but people call you rude, out of touch, arrogant. Does that ever make you stop and think maybe the problem isn't everyone else? Bill looked at him for a long moment, the silence stretching. Then he smiled. No, it makes me think the problem is people confusing bluntness with cruelty. I tell the truth. They call it arrogance because it stings. The audience clapped slowly, then louder. Jimmy tried to laugh it off. Oh, come on. You enjoy stirring it up. Bill nodded. Of course I do. But I don't pretend it's therapy. You pretend every punchline saves the world. The line landed like a slap. Some people gasped, others cheered. The show's floor manager gestured wildly to keep things moving, but Jimmy ignored him. So what are you saying? Jimmy pressed. I shouldn't care about people? Should I just stand here and sneer? Bill chuckled. I'm saying stop trying to be everybody's friend. Comedy dies when the host is scared of the audience. That brought a long, rolling wave of applause. Even some of the crew were grinning off camera. Jimmy blinked hard, his jaw tightening. Easy for you to say, he shot back. You've built your career complaining. Some of us actually try to make people laugh. Bill tilted his head. You confuse laughing with agreeing. They're not the same thing. The crowd reacted again, bigger this time, the applause almost defiant. Jimmy slammed his cue card down on the desk. All right, Philosopher King, what's your secret then? How should we do it? Bill didn't hesitate. Say what you mean. And if it bombs, own it. Don't rewrite the joke to fit the audience the next night. A roar of laughter and cheers. Jimmy laughed too, but it sounded hollow. So you're saying you've never backed down from anything you've said? Never from the truth, Bill said. From bad jokes, sure, but not from the truth. Jimmy leaned back, shaking his head. You really believe you're the only honest guy left in show business? Bill smiled faintly. No, I just notice how quiet it gets when I show up. The audience went wild. Applause, whistles, even a standing ovation from a few rows. The band struck a drumbeat that couldn't hide the tension. Jimmy lifted his mug again, pretending to toast him. Well, congratulations. You've officially made my crowd your crowd. Bill nodded. They were never yours to begin with. They just wanted someone to say what they were thinking. The studio roared once more. Jimmy exhaled sharply, smiling for the camera but not for real. Okay, he said, his voice shaking slightly. We're going to take a quick break. The red light above the camera blinked. The band stumbled into a tune that sounded almost apologetic. As the camera panned out, Bill sat calmly in his chair, eyes fixed on Jimmy. While Jimmy avoided his gaze completely, the confrontation had turned into domination. The escalation was complete. The air inside the studio was electric. The crowd had stopped being a polite audience. They were now spectators at a duel. Every sentence from the guest drew cheers or groans. Every comeback from the host felt like a swing in a boxing ring. The host gripped his cards tightly. His grin, the one he'd worn for years without effort, wasn't coming naturally now. The producers behind the cameras could see it. The tremor in his jaw, the darting glances toward the control booth. He took a breath. "You know," he said, voice steady but thin, "it's easy to sit there and tell everyone else how they should talk. But this job, keeping the energy up, making people laugh, it's not as simple as you make it sound." The guest leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his tone calm, deliberate. "Simple isn't the problem, honest is. You've built an empire on being liked. I built mine on being listened to. Big difference." A murmur rippled through the crowd, followed by a nervous laugh. The host forced a smile. "You're saying I'm fake?" "I'm saying you're rehearsed," the guest replied. "Every sentence feels like it went through 5 focus groups before you said it." The audience gasped, then erupted in laughter and applause. The host's eyes flicked upward to the red camera light. Millions were watching. He couldn't lose control, at least not visibly. He laughed, but the sound was sharp. "That's rich coming from someone who's made a career out of being the smartest guy in the room," the guest smirked. "That's not arrogance, it's experience. When you've been around long enough, you stop confusing charm with substance." The crowd roared again. The laughter hit like a wave. The band leader tried a short riff to cut the tension, but it only amplified the noise. The host straightened his tie, looking directly into the guest's eyes. "All right, then give me some substance. What should we be doing, O wise one?" The guest's answer was quiet but devastating. "Start by asking questions you actually care about. The audience can tell when you don't." The eruption that followed was half laughter, half disbelief. The sound bounced off every wall. The host's cheeks flushed. He grabbed his mug, took a slow sip, and set it down with a clink. "You really think you're the only honest person left in television?" The guest's smile widened. "No, just the only one who's not scared of losing an ad break." A few people in the front row stood clapping. The chant started faintly, rising from the back. "Say it again! Say it again!" The host slammed his cue cards on the desk. Enough. The room fell silent. Cameras zoomed in tight. "You come on my show," he said, voice shaking. "And you think you can just tear it apart? This is supposed to be entertainment." The guest rose slightly from his chair, not angry, just unflinching. "And it was, until you made it about you." The roar of the crowd was immediate and uncontrollable. Some cheered, some booed, some shouted for calm. The producers gestured frantically toward the stage manager. Cut to commercial, but the host kept talking. "You're not the hero here, man. You're just louder." The guest stood now, slowly, deliberately. "No," he said, his voice carrying through the chaos. "I'm just not afraid of silence." The words hit like a thunderclap. The crowd gasped. The noise fell away to nothing but the hum of the studio lights. The host stared up at him, speechless, and that's when the director gave the order. The floor manager rushed forward, motioning to the crew to wrap, but the host, red-faced, waved him off. "Sit down," he barked. "We're not done." The guest shook his head. "Oh, I think we are." The breaking point had come. The sound returned all at once, shouting from the floor, laughter, whistles, the band striking a chord to cover the tension. The audience was on its feet, half cheering, half booing. The cameras whipped between the two men. The guest adjusted his jacket, calm again, and turned to the audience. "Folks, relax. This isn't a fight. It's just what honesty looks like on television." That line set off another round of applause. The host sat frozen behind his desk, smiling stiffly. "Yeah, honesty," he said through his teeth. "My favorite thing to be ambushed with." The guest took a step toward the edge of the stage. "If you're surprised by honesty, maybe that's the ambush." Laughter rolled through the crowd again. Even the drummer cracked a grin. The host forced a laugh, tapping his papers nervously. "You've had your fun." The guest glanced at the cameras, then back at him. "Fun? I thought we were having a conversation. But you seem to prefer the monologue." The crowd groaned and laughed at once. Someone yelled, "Ouch!" The host slammed his palm on the desk, rising halfway out of his chair. "All right, that's it. Thank you for coming." The band started playing the outro, a loud, jazzy riff that barely covered the shouting. The producers were waving wildly now, mouthing cut, cut, cut. The guest stayed where he was, smiling faintly. He reached for his water, took a sip, and said clearly into his microphone, "And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how truth clears a studio." The audience went insane, standing, clapping, some booing, some cheering. The host turned toward the camera, his smile strained but professional. "We'll be right back," he managed, voice shaking with forced cheer. The red light above the lens blinked out. In the seconds after the feed cut, the studio noise swelled, people talking over each other, crew members rushing to the stage, the host arguing with the producer, the band playing aimlessly to fill the chaos. The guest simply handed his mic to an assistant, straightened his tie, and walked off stage. He didn't look angry. He looked done. Behind him, the host slumped into his chair, rubbing his temples, the applause still echoing faintly from the hallway. The cameras never came back from commercial. When the network resumed, the next segment opened cold, with a different host introducing a pre-taped interview. Later that night, clips of the confrontation flooded social feeds, each one captioned with the same line the guest had delivered just before walking away. "This isn't a fight. It's what honesty looks like on television." Within hours, it became the moment everyone was talking about. The rare instance when a guest walked onto a stage built for jokes and left having rewritten the tone of the entire show.